and we are learning Maseches Pesachim Daf Pei Gimel Amud Beis. We are 6 lines down from the top of the Amud after having discussed the halachos of Atzamos in the Mishnah. The Mishnah discussed the burning of Atzamos. We wanted to know which Atzamos are we talking about and whether or not that there is an issur of breaking the bones of the Pesach after the Pesach is brought. We saw that machlokes, and now the Gemara is going to turn its attention to one of the other things that are listed in the Mishnah as things that needed to be burned. We had mentioned atzamos, and we had mentioned noser, and we had mentioned gidin. Gidin meaning sinews. Sinews are interesting because, spoiler alert, there is a sinew that no matter what, you're not allowed to eat, and that, of course, is the gid hanasha. So let's see how that impacts our understanding of the burning of gidin with regards to Korban Pesach. Says the Gemara as follows, 6 lines down from the top of the Amud, middle of the line. Amar Rabbi Huda, Amar Rav, says Rabbi Huda in the name of Rav. Kol hagidin, all of the gidin, all sinews that exist in the guf of a behema are basar. They are meat, meaning they are edible. Chutz, aside from gidei tzavar, from the sinews of the neck. Those sinews of the neck, those are not considered to be meat. Now, let's understand what exactly this means and whether or not this is true. Says the Gemara Tanan, hold on, didn't we learn that the bones and the sinews and leftover meat need to be burned on the 16th day of the month of Nisan? Says the Gemara, Hani Gidin. Which Gidin that we are talking about? The Heichidami. What are these? These Gidin in the Mishnah. What Gidin? So if you're talking about fleishiks, meaning that they are edible, they are meat, you can eat them. So then you should eat them. And if you're talking about sinews that have been left over, that you didn't eat, so we've already discussed that. So either they're meat or they're noser. What's in between? Elapshita, rather you have to say gidei tzavar, that we are talking about the gidei tzavar, that you're talking about the sinews in the neck. Says the Gemara, okay, if you want to say that they are meat, that's why they need to be burnt, because they were meat. You should have eaten them, and you didn't eat them. It's nicer, so now they're left over. But if you said that they're not something that's edible, you don't need to eat them. Why do they need to be burnt? So, what exactly is their definition here? Which these gidei tzavar that we had just determined, either they're gidin that need to be burnt or they're gidin that don't need to be burnt. And since the Mishnah is talking about gidin that need to be burnt, that would imply that they are meat. Otherwise, why would you need to burn them? And that would include the gidei tzavar. Says the Gemara, no. The gidin that we're talking about in the Mishnah that need to be burnt are not the gidei tzavar. They're not the gidei tzavar, and those are not meat. You can still say that the statement of Rabbi Huda Amar Rav is correct. It says the Mishnah is talking about the gid hanasha. Gid hanasha has to be burnt. Ve'alibet Rabbi Huda, and this goes according to the opinion of Rabbi Huda. Did Tanya, because we learned the following. Rabbi Huda says, "Eino neig ela ba'achas." Ooh. You might remember the story that Yaakov Avinu was fighting with Malach, and in the morning, the Malach is about to lose, and he has his one final strike, and it kicks him in the leg, and now he is limping. So al yerecho, he is limping on his leg singular, not both legs. Says Rabbi Huda. Says Rabbi Huda that the issur of gid hanasha only applies to one out of the two legs. V'hadas machras shel yamin. And it is logical to conclude that this is the right leg, meaning the issue of gid hanasha, the issur of gid hanasha, only applies to the right leg of the animal. And therefore, the left leg is entirely edible. Says the Gemara, well, so then, what are we saying here? That according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to say that's the Tana of Mishnah, and that he's saying that you have to burn the gidin, that you have to burn one of the gidei hanasha. So why would you have to burn one of them? Still doesn't answer the question. So does that mean that Rabbi Yehuda says that you have does he say that we do know which one, or you don't know which one? He says it's logical to assume that it's the right one. So does that mean that he doesn't know which is which? Because if he really is certain, the one that you know, you should eat. The isura nishadye, and the one that that's aser, you should throw out. Meaning, eat the left one, leave the right one. Mazel tov. In either case, what needs to be burned here? Why would you need to burn it? Says the Gemara, I'll explain. Amar Rabbi Ika bar Chanina. Says Rabbi Ika bar Chanina kagon shehuchru ulabasayf nisarvu. What are we talking about here? Is that you have an expert Jewish butcher. He removed both gid hanashas. He's really good at that. That's called nikur hagid. He's not well organized, so they got confused. Now what happens is, one of them is asur, one of them is mutter, but you don't know which is which, and that's a 50-50. And that becomes a safek deraisa l'chumra, which means that you are not allowed to eat it, which means you have to leave both of them over. But you know that of those two, one of them should have been eaten. So one of them is for sure nicer. And since one of them is nicer, you have to burn both of them. And those are the gidin that we're talking about in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara of Ashi, Amar of Ashi explains differently. We are talking about in the Mishnah, not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that one of the gidin is really kosher for achila, and if it was mixed up, then it's noser. But rather, with the gidin that we're talking about in the Mishnah, everybody agrees, at least this time the Mishnah agrees, that both of the gidin are asur. So why are you burning them? Because of shamna the gid hanasha, because of the oil, the fat of the gid hanasha. The liquid that came out of the gid hanasha that went into the basar that is right next to it. The Tanya, because we have a brisa that says shamnoi, that the shemen, the juice, the liquid, the fat of the gid hanasha is mutter, is permissible. We Yisrael kedoshim him, but the Jewish people are holy. V'noagim by iser, and they treat it as aser. What does that mean? In general, gid hanasha is aser. The shuman hagid, the fat that comes out of the gid hanasha, is mutter. Klal Yisrael have a minhag not to eat it. This is interesting because it doesn't seem like this was a gezerah. It seems to be that this was a minhag Yisrael not to eat it, and therefore everybody violated noser because that's the minhag. The minhag is that everybody would leave the area around the gid, not eat it, and therefore be in violation of noser, and then be mechuyev to burn that noser. And that's because Yisrael kedoshim him. Now we have a similar statement that is said by Ravina, but you'll see Ravina is a little bit different in that Ravina is going to tell us that it was a gzer midrabanan. Ravina says bechitzon, that there are really two gidin. There is an inner gid and there's an outer gid in each leg, meaning there's four gidin, two on the right, two on the left. The inner one is a problematic one mid'oraisa, and the outer one is only a problem mid'rabanan. So it's bechitzon. Uchde Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, like Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Shnei gidin hein, there are two gidin pinimi asamach le'etzim. There's the inner one which is closest to the bone. Also, that's the isur deraisa v'chayavin aleh, and you get malchus if you ate that. The chitzon, the outer one, asamach lebasa, which is closest to the flesh. Also, that one is also ve'in chayavin aleh, but you don't get malchus for that because that is only an isur derabanan. It's not an isur deraisa. And nevertheless, you see that the Jewish people, they don't eat that gid which is mutter to eat mid'oraisa. The Chachamim said not to eat it, and therefore everybody has these gidin which are also basar. Basar gidin, but nobody's going to eat it because either the minhag Yisrael according to Rav Ashi or the isur d'Rabbanan according to Ravina. Says the Gemara quoting from the Mishnah that what happens if Chal Tezayin, if the 16th day of the month of Nisan fell out on a Shabbos. So if you had Pesach fell out on a Friday, second day of Pesach, first day of Chol Hamoed, fell out on a Shabbos. So what are you going to do here? You cannot burn it until the 17th. V'amai, and why not? Why do you have to wait until the 17th? You have a positive mitzvah to burn the noser, and you have a negative mitzvah not to violate Yom Tov. Why do you have to wait until the 17th? Burn it on Yom Tov. Burn it on Yom Tov. This is a principle called Aseh Doiche Lois Aseh. The positive mitzvah comes and overrides the negative mitzvah. This is a principle that shows up in Shas all over the place. It comes up with regards to Yibum, and it comes up with regards to Kilayim and Tzitzis for the Kohen Gadol, and it comes in many, many other areas that Esed Derech Lo Saseh. Why wouldn't we say Esed Derech Lo Saseh here? Amar Chizkiah, we're going to see like 4 different Mahalchim here. Amar Chizkiah, V'chein Tanei Be Chizkiah. It says Chizkiah, and this was also taught in the base marriage of Chizkiah. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Lo Yisir Mimenu Ad Boker. Do not leave anything over until morning. And that which is left over until morning should be burnt in fire. Why do you say until morning? That which is left over, just v'anoiser. Why do you have to say ad boker? What does that ad boker come to teach me? That comes to tell me that there's another boker, meaning there's a noiser and then there's ad boker. That you don't have to burn it that day, you can burn it the next day, and that means that while there is a din d'oraisa that needs to be burned, you don't have to burn it that day. You can burn it the next day. You have lost nothing by burning it the next day. And therefore, an essay is derech lo saseh, but the essay doesn't have to be done now. You can do it later. Meaning you can do it in such a way that it's not going to violate the lo saseh, and therefore the question falls apart. Abaya says, Amar Kra, I'll give you another reason. Ola Shabbos b'Shabbosai. There's going to be another from the Musaf of Shabbos, right? Ola Shabbos b'Shabbos, the Ola of Shabbos on its Shabbos. That's what you bring. The Ola of Shabbos on Shabbos. What does that mean? Ola Shabbos b'Shabbos. V'loi, that comes to exclude Ola Schol b'Shabbos. You don't burn the Ola of a Chol of a weekday on Shabbos. Meaning you don't offer it, you don't burn it, you don't do anything with it. V'loi Ola Schol b'Yom Tov. And you also don't get involved in the Ola of a Chol on a Yom Tov. Meaning each Shabbos and Yom Tov have their korbanos. You don't involve one korban in the next day. And that would tell you that Noser of today's of the Yom Tov korban is not burnt on Shabbos, and of Pesach, the Noser of Pesach is not burnt on, meaning of Erev Pesach, really when it is brought, is not burnt on Pesach itself, because that would be an Olas Chol that's brought on that would be burnt on Yom Tov. Each korban is burnt on its day. That's how he says. Olas Shabbos b'Shabbos comes to tell you that Shabbos dika korbanos are brought in Shabbos, and Yom Tov dika korbanos are brought in Yom Tov, and you don't burn anything that is not from its day. Rava tells you, I'll give you another reason. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, with regards to the halachas of Yom Tov, you want to know why you can't do this on Yom Tov? Why can't you burn it on Pesach itself? Pasuk says, Hu levadoi ya'aseh lachem. This is a very important pasuk, halacha l'maaseh today, with regards to the mitzvahs of what are you allowed to cook on Yom Tov. You're allowed to cook that which is necessary lachem for you. That's usually what we learn out of this pasuk. But Rav is coming to tell us we're going to learn something not just from the ya'aseh lachem, which in Maseches Beitza comes to all the halachas of lachem. Here we are going to discuss the halachas of hu and levado. So says Rava, hu, it, v'loi machshirav, and not the things that are in preparation of it. Meaning, you can prepare food on Yom Tov, but you can't prepare food on Yom Tov. So you can't sharpen the knife and you can't chop the wood. Those things you cannot do. Who, the things directly related to the food, that you could do. The lighting the fire, the cooking the food. But chopping the wood you cannot do. Who, v'loi machshirav. Levado, alone, only. That word only, this is interesting. Turning over the page to pay dollar, we'll see the next 2 lines. V'loi mila shaloi bizmana, and not a bris milah that's not in its right time. That's what the word levada comes to teach, yeah? Meaning, haba mikal v'chomer, because otherwise you would have said a kal v'chomer. You would have said a kal v'chomer if not for that word levada, because the halacha is that a baby does get a bris milah on Shabbos, meaning milah overrides Shabbos, if it is the 8th day, but not otherwise. And we learn that from the word, why not? He was sick on the 8th day, but he's okay on the 9th day. So the word levado comes to tell you that only the things of Yom Tov you can do on Yom Tov, meaning not a bris milah that isn't mechuyev to happen that day, because otherwise you take a look at the Rashi here, he makes the whole deduction of all of the kal v'chomer, because otherwise you would have said that since based on tzaras and based on milah and based on korbanos, that all of these things, you would have come to the conclusion, if not for the word levado, that you could do a bris milah on Yom Tov even if it wasn't day number 8. That's what levado teaches you. Rav Ashi says, I'll give you one more pasuk to teach you this din, that that essay doesn't exist. Yeah. Why? Because there's something unique about Yom Tov and Chol Shabbos as well. Rashi says, Shabboson, the Yom Tov Esehu. When the pasuk says Shabboson, right? V'yom Hashvi'i Shabboson Yalachem, on the seventh day of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is called the Shabboson. Shabboson means that you have to rest on that day. That means that every Yom Tov both has an essay and a lois haseh. There's a positive and a negative mitzvah. Ve'in essay doiche lois haseh ve'essay. And a mitzvah's essay cannot override another mitzvah's essay, meaning it doesn't override a mitzvah's essay and lois essay together. So even though it's true that essay derech lois essay, it would not be the case over here. And Pesachim Yisbarach, we will continue with the Mishnah tomorrow. Everybody should have a beautiful day, and we will see you then.